So hi. I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not neither somebody from the marketing, but the fact is that I'm in contact with these two aspects of games since I do video games. And when we do game design, we manipulate player models. Sometimes it goes a bit further than just pressing button. I don't know if you know this guy. It's Steve Swing. He make a very good book called Game Feel, speaking about the link between what we see, how we press on button, and all the hardware aspect, but also all the player aspect. I mean, it can be motor, cognitive, perceptual element, but also intent of the player into the gameplay. So what I want to show there is the fact that when we think about a game or something, we modelize player. Sometimes it's, and for a long time it was empirical, but it's more and more shaped by explicit model. There is another way that we use to modelize players. It's skills. We can easily understand with this gameplay that try to find the basket balloon in this era, that we challenge some specific skills for you. And I have a very interesting example of how far the game designer can go and understanding the player skills we use. So this is the first video. You might be already see this video. It's an arcade Tetris player. He's just finishing the game. So it's the last level of the game. You see the speed of his control, and then the credit starts, and there is a hidden level there, an invisible level. So I guess some of you already seen this video, saw this video. So how we can design something like that as a game designer? It's because we know what are the cognitive aspects of the player. No, we can quit. We can cut the video. So you get the point. The guy go very, very fast here, and it just need to see the little bricks arriving, and it create a pattern of reaction seeing these bricks, and he didn't need to see how it's gonna be down of the screen. You don't need it, and the designer at one point know it by making the game. So they provide this incredible level, and it's very impressive for us that we are not at this level of skill in the game. But so it shows really strongly at how far we can go manipulating player skills. Another way to model the player that we use from the beginning of video games, it's core. Here we have an example from Taito and Atari at the very beginning of games. This is an example from Blue Estate, the last game I work on, that is at the Paris Games Week now. Now we even go to the point we give to the player stats about, okay, even silly stats like this is the lifespan of enemies. Okay, an enemy, when you see an enemy, when he appears in your field of view, what is his lifespan? 2.8 seconds for this player. So it's an interesting stat. But you also have things that are more about your direct performance, like precision when you have your headshot and things like that. So you all know a game with a lot of stats about your own performance in the game. And during the conception of the game, for sure, we have playtests where we have a lot of data to try to get the best tension all along the levels and etc. So we go so far now that, and it's not recent, you see that it's in 2005, that we are even able now to create clone of the player. And for the motorsport is one of the remarkable example, because even so 10 years ago, they were able to create a clone of you when you drive a car in this game by inviting you to play several circuits, specific map, and this map represents all the different patterns we can find in all of the circuit of the game. And at the end of this 4 or 5 map, I don't remember, they create a clone of you, and you can let it play for you. It makes the same mistakes and the same good points in the game. So we are at this point. We are now able to analyze the way you play micro decision and create clone of the player. Okay, so the modeling is not only for the quality, but also something used for the business. If some of you are in the online or connecting type of game, you already study the funnel or the acquisition, and you try to know by creating analyze of the player path through your game when the guys give up or drop the process, and try to understand where are the problems. And also, you try to analyze the buyer's typology and to see, okay, is it a whale or is it a non-buyer at all, and try by his behavior to put people into categories like this, and it's useful when you address maybe some new stuff to sell for people. This is a very interesting case. I will stay maybe 1 minute on this. It's this guy, the guy who owned this little game, originally owns a company that sells tires and things you put on the roof of the car to put luggage and things like that. So he wants a game to know a bit more his audience. And so he created a little game that proposed to family who go in holidays on the road, a little game to play with the children, something like, okay, c'est quand qu'on arrive in French means, oh, when do we arrive, when the children ask this in the car. So it's a game to occupy the family to play with all the family in the car. But to play it correctly, you need to tell who is in the car and which player is the driver, because he will not play with the phone in his hand. Somebody have to take it and ask question and quiz through it. You have to tell what is your trip, your road trip to France. You have to tell what are the age of the different players, because you will not ask the same quiz for a 6-year-old boy than for mom. So through the game process, he learned information about his audience and people who know his company. And actually, the guy sell his tire and car element company, but he keep the game because he believe he can create value with it. And he's trying to create a new model about, with little games like that, give value for the data he gets on some segmentation and sell it, and sell the game to the people who are interested by this segment. So it's, I guess, something that we will see maybe more and more. And this is an example of now where we are. All the example we saw just before, we are not directly linked to the gameplay, in a way, my part. But you can see that it's really in the actuality. I just take this job description on the King's job board, something like 1 week ago. For a senior game designer, they ask this kind of skills. Your skills at using mathematical model and tools to analyze gameplay and user behavior, and you are familiar with psychological model concerning motivation and didactic, and therefore able to create extraordinary experience for the player. So we ask for a game designer now to clearly, explicitly understand what are the psychological model they use while they're creating game. So it drives us to creating a psychological model of the player. You might know this model from Bartle. And Bartle 20 years ago have the intuition that we can maybe with survey create categories of play style in MMORPG. It was not MMORPG, but MUD at the period. But so it was very intuitive. Everybody take it and talk about it because it was one of the first of its kind, and say, okay, oh yeah, we can analyze player style. Look, and there is a lot of leg scientifically because the typology used was empirically made, not based on scientific models or things like that. It was based on a survey and not from input from the game. So there is a lot of bias into the thing, but it was a first step and very strong one. Now the same kind of survey are done now, just one in March, for instance, on the WoW players. They just show that they use the Big Five personality model. I guess some of you know it. Big Five personality model is the most used personality psychometric test to evaluate your personality. There is a 5 big dimension they measure. And so they do the same kind of job than Bartle, but with this psychological model, and they find correlation. There is one of the dimension is the extraversion, and yes, for instance, PvP player in WoW have a significant higher score in extraversion in terms of personality. So it's we go further in that, but it remains survey. Now, this is an example of the first job I did in this category of in this field. So I'm a creative director. I publish game. I still publish game, but I'm very interested in these topics. And this is the first job I did with Le Cédric. Le Cédric is the computer science lab from the CNAM in Paris. And in this study, we try to understand how we can study player decision from inputs and give meaning to these inputs in terms of psychology. Here we use game theory in this example, and we study little fighting situation in Ninja Gaiden. It was in 2005. So all the inputs of the game, there is more than these ones, and what they mean in this specific situation, press A, jump, etc. And the game system state at the moment the player do it. And we have a confrontation in the matrix, and we have a payoff. And we can, through one specific battle situation, can be represented by maybe 9 matrix, and the player jump from a matrix to another each time he take a decision. And what's rise from that, it's the fact that players often don't take decision for the immediate situation. They take decision for a second or a third matrix. They take the risk, a probability risk, to reach a better opportunity later. So, and some players have a longer-term vision than others. So it was quite interesting to see, even from the input and this very rational approach, we have some insight about the profile of the player. And this is the main experience we did after that. The name of the project was Je Serai. The Je Serai wins the Game Fortune Prize in Europe a few years ago, so we can launch the video. I sum up I will pitch it quickly while the video will run. So in this game, you are creating a little character. You have maybe some question about the way you want it. It's a bit like an Animal Crossing game. It takes 2 hours to play it fully. And during this game, you will have little quests, little tasks to do for the people in the city, like these mini games to get the apple at the right time, or managing this guy for them not breaking the eggs, etc. So you have a quest log. So activities are really very different in each quest you have in this game. There is 18 mini games like this into the city, but it's not the only thing that you can do. There is also things like what we call recurrent activity. Nothing tell you in the games to do that, but you can discover it on the map, like water the plant, play with the ball, or whatever. Another type of mini game you can have in a game. And at the end of the game, we measure a lot of things into this activity, and we create a profile of you. And this profile, it's called the Holland-Riasek model, nothing to see with our president. And this guy was a researcher who started in the 60s. And this model, Riasek, realistic, investigative, artistic, etc., is used for vocational guidance, to measure professional interest. So it's a very strong and scientifically tested model. He has issues, but in science, when we know issues of a model, it's good because we can manage it while we use it. So our role here was to create connection between different type of activity and try to see how the player can score with this activity on this specific psychological model. So you have this specific mini games. You have this. It's a recurrent activity in the village. We also have what we call quiz. I don't know if I show it just after. No, it's before. Can we go back just? Oh, okay, the red one, sorry. Come back, okay. And so we have this other kind of activity that are like a quiz. Maybe this is the most close from a normal psychometric test you do with question and things. Because most of the time when you want to have this profile from somebody, you have a questionnaire and you answer a question. So maybe this kind of activity is the most close of that, and we had to implement it to measure a narrative implement questionnaire. But all the other are more linked to gameplay preference or gameplay itself. And this is the result of the study. We we have a 150-person panel test when we did the first try. We work with UPenn, that is a famous psychology university in Paris, and they have a very good lab for that. And we try to create correlation between the players take the questionnaires, they fill it, and they play the game. And we see if there is correlation in the people who who are strongly realist in the questionnaire, for instance, and a game that we suppose very attractive for them. That is one of the things. And we see that some of the item works quite well. Here, the best correlation, sometimes very significant, are related to the game we made for, the profile we made the game for. Sometimes it's not working at all. This is the mini games. This is the activity in the village, for instance. In the village, the fact that you prefer to water plants or play with the balloons freely, it's not very significant in terms of describing your dimension, but it can it reveals other things. This failure reveals us something about the fact that the core activity and cognitive activity of the player into the gameplay or the interactive experience is maybe the most important aspect of the way we can create profile. Because even if we fail into making say, okay, playing with ball might interest more the realist kind of guy, it didn't work. But what we see that all these hidden activity in the village, most of them, sorry, not all, 4 of them are strongly related to a specific profile, the investigative type of guy. It seems obvious with a step back, say, okay, it's normal, it's hidden activity in the village. But when we did it, it was not as obvious. So this is our model. And what we learned, for instance, about realistic into this test is we have a lot of literature telling from the 60s telling who are the guys who have a high score in realistic. And so there are practical guys like on work, they like challenge, sport challenge and things like that. And in the game, we reveal things like, okay, yeah, they have the real preference for time mechanism. Not time challenge. It didn't mean that you need to have a timer into the game. It can be, for instance, our apples in the trees will go to rotten apple quickly like this. This kind of mechanism in minigame seems to have the preference of this guy. So we have for some of this dimension insight like this. We also measure something else in this game. It's another model, but we didn't scientifically evaluate it, but I just want to tell it because it can be useful, I guess, for anyone here. It's investigating the way people take decisions. This is the questionnaire we ask sometimes to the player. He go near the school, he see that the teacher have a problem, he speak with the teacher, and the teacher say, I have to make something out with my students. It can be a museum, visiting a Hoover or something. And the way we propose a different solution for the player to advise the teacher is something like that, with only one solution on the screen, and you can slide them, and you have a lot of proposition. And what we look here, we look if you try to see all the proposition before choosing one, if you try to see all the proposition several times before take decision, or if you stop on the first one who pleased you. And there is a psychological model about decision called RN model that can be used to understand if you are an intuitive or a rational type of guy in terms of decision. Okay, why we can use psychological profiling in game now. we all know that most of connected game gonna on models linked to advertising or even nearly selling product, like you can see on the criminal case here. And to do it well on the advertising, online advertising market, we try to be more and more linked to the type of people we faced and to address them the good advertising. So this is one of the products from Flurry, you might know, a big analytic agency for online digital advertising. And they create a persona of people and they can track it to their behavior, to the different application. So, and they show off the fact that people have a better click per mile on the, when they use this kind of tool to address advertising. And we also have so having a good archetype could be a first thing. And the second thing is there is a push on that, on the fact that we might create archetype from people here or address these people through advertising. This is another study, not only from Flurry, but from some other sources that try to set the different occupation we have with on our mobile phone. And we see that all these one, I mean Facebook, Twitter, social messaging, YouTube, most of them, Google browser, etc., we are tracked here in a way, and we give data to some kind of business, and for advertising mainly. And we have this big hole here. We only use to know what kind of product you in-game purchase you did or thing like that. I guess it's a very low type of information we can get compared to the quality of information we can have from a player. When we play, we reveal ourselves a bit more than maybe other activity. We see that we can go deeply into personality. So if I see, I just want to show two examples of how we can practically use it. If you, in your game, I retake my realistic guy, I know that I'm addressing a guy that is from, I have this strong dimension, and I can know it through my games. And I can easily know that maybe this guy is the more accurate to propose this new ad about making a sell on a tool set. I guess I will have more chance to reach a good result here than if I have an investigative guy. The investigative guy, as we know it for now, is more interested into experimenting solution with the non-explicit choice to investigating complex systems. For this guy, just know, I would certainly propose this advertising based on the next civilization game, because the new one, I mean, I guess I would have more click than with the tool set. So this is a way I think we can now create player profile from gameplay and taking it as a base to link it to maybe psychological profile. This is all kind of thing that we can take from a game and to establish what is your style, what is the way you play. Yes, performance, as we know from the beginning. You know, efficiency, maybe it's the amount of resource you use to do a task, and it can be very different from a people to another. Your relation to risk. There is a study that will come out into scientific press about the fact that they try to get a relation between the people who take risk in EVE Online and insurance. I mean, buying insurance. So that's quite interesting. So about learning, preference, motivation, task, strategy. I guess for the five, big ensemble of criteria that we can get from people who are playing. And there is two things to do with information we can get from that. So there is maybe not yet an universal model, but we can, from taking this data from a game, create typology, maybe a bit more accurate for your game than if you take the one from Bartle that it was dedicated to a specific genre. And you can also try to make correlation with a lot of well-known psychological model the interesting aspect of that is the fact that, for instance, list of value of somebody are already at the center of studies in marketing. To say, okay, the list of value, and what is the link between the list of value and the consumer behavior in research. So, okay, and the thing is, the question I ask now, because I don't have the good visibility on that, is the way we can impact the value chain between the consumer and advertising company, because I guess everyone on the road can have an interest to have a better insight on player. For instance, the developer who gets player data, he is at the center of the collecting thing. He can have a lot of information about the gameplay. He can give value to this data. It was just playtesting or improving content. No, through the gameplay data, he can give value to it and maybe monetize it or discuss it with the platform and say, for instance, to Facebook, okay, I have something for you that can be useful because your business model is based on giving advertising to you, all your people you have here. So what the platform see a tool to make a better segmentation, and the digital marketing ecosystem, they just want to increase the match between an advertising and somebody. So I guess this could be an interesting way to help this market. So this is the last slide, and a few takeaways for you. So I highlight the fact that game design is a way to manipulate model of the player, and including psychological one. So gameplay data can help us to create this kind of archetype, and this profile we do can impact on the value chain in digital advertising. So that's all for my presentation.
Well, thank you very much for this eye-opening talk. We have some time for questions, so if you have any question, feel free to tell me. I'll get you the microphone. Sorry. Anybody? No? Not now? I have one question for you, Emmanuel. What advice would you give to a studio who would like to use his understanding of player psychology to work on his design? It's a big topic and a big question, but...
It depends if you already have people or not. But I think the main thing you can do is using this data to know who you are addressing. If you understand that most of your communities, for instance, are realistic type of guy, I guess it's better for you to have a very arcade type challenge to please him. If you want to enlarge your community, maybe you can try other track for your content.
So the first step is just to analyze your players, right? To know them first.
Yeah, for sure. And you can know it even, what you can do even from the playtest is the way you can create different archetype of typology of player. That's something you can do really, really early on your game.
But playtests tend to come later on, at least halfway through the development. If you want to use player psychology at the very beginning, when you start working on the concept, so your first advice would be first, to take the time and analyze your players, either through on other games or by using data on existing games, things like that.
You can do that, and there is also already some publication that can help to, if you want to address a specific category of population, I think you can design a game to address it. In terms of design content, game design content.
Okay. Yes, one question there.
Hello. Hi, my name is Michael Suros. I'm with New World Interactive. We did Insurgency. And we're a first-person shooter. And I have a general question. We're a little less interested in specifically the psychology of players, but we do absolutely want to interpret through statistics their habits and the types of maps and modes they prefer. I just have a general question for you, which is, what kind of advice would you have for our studio, which wants to track player metrics, not specifically with their behaviors as far as psychologically, but their preference and how we can exploit that?
Do you have several types of gameplay inside of it, like, for instance, cooperative gameplay, PvP, solo?
Yeah,
So even having understanding what are the people preference here can be for you a good way to create typology of your community and understand, is it an in-app purchase type of game? You will sell the game at itself, or you will sell, it's a freemium or something like that? It's a free-to-play? Okay. Okay, so the only thing that I guess be useful for you is how you can create content for specific population in your game. But I guess we already know to do it. I'm not sure it's the best place to apply the psychological profiling for game. We empirically already use it when we create content for specific targets. Here we discuss maybe a use that is more addressed to how we can make business with it mainly. But for the quality content of a game, I guess we all know how to make games here and have our process to see how we can increase this quality of content.
Another question? Yes, one here.
Hi, very interesting model to rely on the investigating guy, realistic one, etc. I have two questions actually. The first one is about the player in the games. Do you make recommendation on activities based on the profile that you have identified for each of the user? That is for the players in the game. And for players who are outside the game, we are talking about a social game, I think. So especially on stuff like Facebook, do you rely on the open graphs or stuff like that to try to market your games with certain types of activities in the games, relying on the profile you have of the audience and the population?
Yeah, it's why I asked the question just before. It's if you have a model that implies to sell things into the game, it seems obvious that you can address maybe more efficiently your in-app content to categories of people. I'm quite sure of that. And what was the first question? I don't remember. There is two parts in your question.
Yeah, the recommendations into the games to, make your players engage more into your game.
Okay, so it's quite the same. Say yes. At the time you understand what kind of player you have in front of you, I guess you can easily give mechanisms that are more near of their concern. But I guess we can do it even that part without going to psychology, just by knowing you play a lot to PvP, it's your thing, and okay, I will give you content about that. It's it's not the best thing. It's when you have to sell something is different, because the way you address it's not only the content, it's also the way you show it to the consumer, I guess.
Another question? Yes, one here.
Free to play, a shop. Do you have specific literature that I could find where I will see increase of sales because I have targeted the profile, the psychology profile?
Not yet. The only one we have is only on the global digital marketing, like what Flourish do with its persona. But the thing is that it proves that having a good archetype of your player or consumer, whatever you call them, is useful to increase your sales or your advertising impact. But as I know, I don't know that apply to a game exactly now. It's why I show it now, I guess. It's not a post-mortem.
Another question? No? Maybe I have one extra one. What we saw right now is clearly very useful when you are at the stage of designing the game and planning the player's experience. Now, what about traditional publishers? Publishers who publish the big games, Call of Duty, Splinter Cell, things like that. Are they also using psychological profiling for marketing purpose?
Yes, for selling, and I already I cannot tell it, but I already works for some publisher to implement model, and it's not new. Several years ago, they tried to unify to a global model what they can get from inside their games and from the marketing and from survey, and try to have a global model of that.
Thank you. Another question?